Welcome everyone to Everything EOS. I am here with Michael Gucci and Christoph Mikel of Malta Block and airdrop's DAPP. We are here to talk about LiquidCrypto, which was the crowd favorite at the recent DAPP Network hackathon that finished up about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're here to talk about everything they've been working on because it goes a lot deeper than just the hackathon project. Michael's been part of the DAPP network since day one. He's been part of the EOS community since before day one. Christoph just has accolades a mile long. We'll talk about that. This is his first time on the show. So welcome, Michael and Chris. How are you guys doing today?
Hello, yeah, nice to be on the show.
I guess we usually start with introductions. Michael, you've been on here before, but I love hearing about your background and about Malta Block and airdrop's DAPP. So why don't you just do a quick intro about who you are and your background with EOS and DAPP Network.
Thank you, Zack. Thank you for bringing us to the show. Glad to be here. Yes, my background I am a ER physician. I practiced emergency medicine for 17 years. I came into crypto sometime in 2015. The usual way, BTC, then Ethereum, and then EOS. Late 2017 is when I switched to EOS full time. And since then, I've been involved in many projects, as you know, airdrops, DAPP was the first one, ZKS, ZOS, many other projects. And as we know, when the liquid apps came out with their VRAM, we were the first one. We deployed this VRAM airdrop the day after the launch of the network. So it was we were the first one on the scene, the first one to appreciate the enormity of what's available with Liquid App. And I'm very glad to be part of the EOS network as well as Liquid Apps, and it's a great project.
I think it's funny that like the very first thing that happened on DAPP Network was the liquid airdrops from you, and hearing the origin story of how the DAPP Network was even created. Tal was trying to figure out a cheaper way to do airdrops, and that's literally how VRAM was born. So that's really cool. Chris, this is your first time on the show, man. You are a legend in the ecosystem. I love following your blog. You're the author of learneos.dev. You have an ebook that's available. Why don't you introduce yourself, man, and then I'll probably just gush over you some more. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, sure. Hi. So yeah, I'm Chris. I've been developing on EOS since it came out, and my background is like also in cryptography. That's how I got into the cryptocurrency space in the first place. Like I studied math and computer science, and then did my master's in computer science with focus on cryptography, and then got into the cryptocurrency space and was really excited by EOSIO. And yeah, I started back when they didn't even launch on the mainnet yet. So I created one of the first smart contracts for the mainnet also. If anyone remembers, it was King of EOS, a small game.
That was you.
Yeah, that was me.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so exactly. I started with this one and then kept on developing some smaller apps and helping some projects launch. And yeah, since beginning of this year, doing it full time and released my book, as you said, Learn EOS Development.
Let's plug that URL. It's going to be in the description, but it's learneos.dev. So check that out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I've released the book and working for Malta Block now, and also for Rigor Deck and some open source projects. So
yeah, I'm also obviously part of Vigor Deck. Awesome, like seeing you on that list, your name definitely stands out in this ecosystem as a legit OG cryptographer. And Michael, I'm sure you could speak to him as well. You have one of the best developers on your team here.
Yes, there is a funny story about how we met. This EOS, the king of EOS. I was one of the early players. And I am still one of the king of the long-standing king.
If anyone wants to take it.
No, yes, it was I did lose a large amount of money there. But I remember Chris from those days, and I was following him. You know Nathan Rempel, right? And he was a part of airdrops DAPP for a very long time until
he's with Liquid Apps now.
Yes. So when he told me that he's going to leave for Liquid Apps full time, and I was thinking, who can I replace him with? And the only thing that came to my mind was this guy who wrote this EOS the king of EOS because I had lost in the first two. I don't know how much I lost there. So anyway, so I contacted Chris, and he was initially, he was hesitant. He was finishing up his book. He said, "I don't know, I'm doing something else, but I'll let you know." But slowly, gradually, I was able to win Christoph to come over to our team, and he's been with us doing all sorts of projects since he joined. It has been exciting.
I just want to plug the blog. It's at cmckel.io. Every time there's a hack, you do a blog article about it, and you did a recent one about de-anonymizing a project called EOS Blender, which was supposed to obfuscate transactions. And I think that ties into what we're about to talk about, which is LiquidCrypto. LiquidCrypto was the project you guys submitted to the DAPP hackathon. And whenever I read this article, you published it like a few days before we're recording this. And I was like, this ties in perfectly because for the hackathon, you built something that encrypts and hides information. And you obviously showed your expertise by being able to decrypt other people's stuff. And we'll get into that after the LiquidCrypto. But why don't we introduce what LiquidCrypto is?
LiquidCrypto is a is a application that we developed using the DAPP network services. Now, anything privacy related requires cryptographic algorithms to be employed. And these may be any type of, there are a variety of options there. It could be blind signatures, it could be elliptic curve cryptography, or it could be ring signatures. There are a number of well-tested algorithms already out there. But the only problem in using this is the expensive computation that's needed. So whenever people try to do anything on-chain, it requires a lot of computation. And with the current CPU usage, it's just not possible to do it on-chain. And when Chris came up with this idea where we can offload the computation of this cryptography to DSPs and then bring it back on-chain to verify the transactions. So it's the idea is very similar to vCPU, where you are offloading the computation to DSPs, but it's different in the sense that we are using well-tested cryptographic algorithms to be done outside, and then we bring the result back on-chain.
So you said it was Christoph's idea. Did you have this idea brewing for a while, and then the hackathon was just like the kick in the butt? It's like, let's do it.
Yeah, pretty much like this. So I was thinking, I had some projects in mind that I wanted to build, and they required some form of cryptography, and it's just not available on EOSIO right now. So Ethereum has all these projects, they're playing around with ZK snarks, and on EOS it was not possible yet. So I had this idea in mind for a lot, and then the hackathon came around, and I saw this theme about extending the DAPP network, and I thought, oh, that's a great idea, just what I needed for some other projects I wanted to build. Let's build LiquidCrypto. And yes, Michael said the idea is to have a whole bunch of advanced cryptographic algorithms like blind signatures, ZK snarks, or secure multi-party computation, available for anyone to use, so they don't have to re-implement it, and they are audited and secured. You can just use them. It's basically ready to use, and it's run by the DSPs off-chain, so you don't have any efficiency problems. So that's a nice part.
You said off-chain. So a lot of times when people hear off-chain, they think it's not still decentralized or not still trustless. I know reading the description of your project, the element of trust comes up, and the trust with the DSP. You want to kind of get into that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that's right. When you're running off-chain, basically the DSP codes run any code, right? And right now that's also the case, but what you could do is, so everyone is running the same DSP software like the LiquidCrypto service, and you could then have several DSPs choose to run the same code and then really on-chain verify that all of these results that they've been computing for like ZK snark or a blind signature are really that they match and nobody cheated there. So if you have only one DSP, then it's kind of centralized to this DSP, but you could just could choose a whole bunch of other DSPs.
You mentioned a couple different types of encryption. You mentioned ZK, snarks, and some other things. So with LiquidCrypto, would you, out of the box, just get to kind of select which encryption you wanted to use, or how's that work?
Yeah, so these primitives are used for several different things. Like blind signatures are great to use for like an anonymous voting protocol, what we implemented in the hackathon. And so that's one use case for them. But then if you want to, let's say you want to hide transactions, you don't want to reveal who you're sending them to, then you would use something like ZK snarks. Or if you want to hide the actual amount that you're sending, then you would also use this. So it depends on your use case. So, and the idea, of course, it will be a lot of work, but the idea is to provide all of these, or at least the most used cryptographic primitives for everyone to use. Yeah.
So the first example you mentioned was the voting, the anonymized voting, and that was the use case that you guys demonstrated at the hackathon. Do you want to kind of explain the use case you guys gave, and maybe give some? I know before we start recording, Michael gave some examples of how this could be used within different applications.
Sure, yeah, I can talk about e-voting protocol. So we implemented blind signatures because they're not that hard to implement, but still require quite some computational effort. And then we implemented an anonymous voting protocol. And so yeah, maybe let's start with how blind signatures actually work. Like in normal signatures, you have a public key, that's a public key known to everyone, and you sign your transactions, for example, with a private key, and then everyone can see that this transaction really originated from you, so it provides authenticity. And what blind signatures allow you to do now is to, let's say, I want to hide what I'm actually signing. So let's say you have a voting protocol and you don't want to reveal what you're voting for. And the protocol now works like this. There's one party that plays the signer and has a public key and a list of pre-approved voters. And then if I want to cast a vote, I don't want to reveal I'm voting for option 1 directly. So what you do is you use this blind signature protocol, and instead of sending the message, the voting option directly to a signing party, what you do is you can hide your message. So you blind it, so it's a hidden voting message, and the signer can then still create a blind signature on this hidden message. And now the interesting part is he doesn't know what he signed, but you can compute a signature on your actual voting option. So yeah, and then you created a signature that's valid under the signer's public key. And he doesn't know, he has no idea what he signed, but you know what you're voting for in your signature, and now someone else could submit it and then verify that it's a valid signature and cast the vote.
So first of all, what's the status of LiquidCrypto right now? It's still pretty much a work in progress, or is it ready for any production applications today?
Yeah, it's still a work in progress. I mean, we have this e-voting protocol and it works, but it was a hackathon and I wouldn't be comfortable giving this code out because nobody did a security audit on the crypto code that maybe a lot of people are going to use. So, yeah. But
it's something that a pretty popular project within the EOS space. You guys are trying to solve the same problem that they've been trying to solve. And I'm talking about PIOS. So you guys kind of got the head start on LiquidCrypto, got kind of the foundation and the idea. How could PIOS take advantage of LiquidCrypto to kind of fulfill the vision that they've had?
PIOS actually published some Medium articles about it. Like they did tests. So if anyone's not familiar with PIOS, they're basically trying to implement Monero on EOS, like with bulletproofs and hiding transactions. And what they've been doing some tests with using elliptic curve cryptography on chain, and they basically said it's too slow. Even with the new EOS VM, that's like specifically tied to EOS, and it's like 6 or 7 times faster in the best case. Even that is still too slow to do any more serious elliptic curve cryptography. And we could provide an option like this, or like elliptic curve cryptography is just the building block, but we could also provide something like the really bigger primitive, like bullet proofs or zero knowledge proofs that they require on top of that. So I think it's definitely useful for POs to look into that. Yeah.
The other interesting thing is POs. I remember a couple months ago that they announced they have some sort of grant program going on. Is that something that you guys have looked into to advance this project, is apply for one of these POs grants?
Yes, I think we will look into that once we finish the backlog of projects that we have. And this hackathon was it came in the right time. So we have an idea about where we want to go from here. So as Chris mentioned, there are several use cases, and POS is definitely, we're looking into that. And we will be applying to that grant. But we have to finish our Project Phoenix first.
Project Phoenix. I know you may have even mentioned it by name the last 2 times you hear, Michael, but we've never really gotten into the weeds of what Project Phoenix is. I think this is the opportunity to introduce it to everyone.
Yes, it's a very exciting project. It's basically a way for any content creator to connect with his or her fans via subscriptions. The idea is similar to Patreon, where you buy different subscriptions to support the artists that you like or the content creator that you like. So for example, Zack, yourself, you have everything EOS, you can have an account on Phoenix and people will subscribe to you. They will support your show at different levels, and you can give them something special that other general population will not get, maybe some exclusive material specific to them. And many times that's not even required. People just support a artist or a content creator because they want to. So it's a subscription based system. And the main difference between us and Patreon is Patreon is censored, it's heavily censored. There is various restrictions about what type of content can go on there and things of that nature, and they can remove your content. Whereas ours is based on IPFS, and of course we use the VRAM from the DAPP services, DAPP network. So there is nothing that can be censored or nothing that can be taken down. Everything is there forever. So that's the difference. And the Phoenix is sort of a metaphor, because there was a project, if you recall, on EOS, which started with this idea. It was called Patrias.
I do remember that.
And something happened to the team and the project folded. But we saw a lot of opportunity there. This is a project that can utilize various services of the DAPP network, and we are very much involved in the DAPP network. So this particular Phoenix project will be using VRAM, it will be using Liquid Scheduler, it will be using Liquid Oracle or the Liquid Harmony, and of course we'll be doing the Liquid airdrop. Did I miss anything else, Chris?
Yeah, you missed V accounts. Like everyone will be able to just create an account without being on the EOSIO blockchain. Yeah.
Yes. So it's a showcase for a number of services that we offer, and that's what I'm excited about.
Sounds like it. Is the code repo, how much would be open source? Would it all be open source, or how?
Yes, the idea is to open source everything, but first we want to, just as N.S. James from Scatter would say, Scatter is open source, but it's not open sourced until the project is ready, right?
Yeah.
So we cannot open source the code now, but once everything is done, functional, everything is going to be open source.
I know you guys have been working on it for a long time, so I'm sure people are looking forward to that. Seeing Chris's code, it's just like looking at Tal's code. Like it's like a best practice of, okay, this is how he implemented V accounts. I'm gonna kind of follow his patterns in my software. What are you looking forward to, Chris, with the voice launch? How it's going to be multi-chain? Is that something you, as a technician and developer, like you kind of want to see, like how they're implementing these multi-chain applications?
Exactly. Yeah, it would be really interesting to see how they really structured or did the architecture for voice. because we don't see any best practices for IBC right now. So that would be definitely interesting to see what's actually on the main chain. Like, I guess probably only the super important stuff, and then they are using a private chain for everything else, and how this communication goes and how they do the syncing, how decentralized it is. There are a
It'll
lot
be
of
very
questions.
interesting.
Yeah.
Just kind of going off the rails here, but we talked about the PEOS grants a couple minutes ago, but what about the EOS VC grants? This might be the first time, if people aren't on Twitter, this might be the first time my community is even hearing about this. But EOS VC, as everyone knows, for a long time, they've been giving equity-based investments into revenue-driven businesses. But yesterday on Twitter, they made an announcement and gave a link to a new web form of applying for EOS VC grants, which are basically no strings attached grant programs to fund projects that may or may not generate revenue. Is this something that you guys have looked into yet? I know it's only been a day, but we are talking about advancing these general use case type things. Like LiquidCrypto is not, it's something that you could use in some of your future dApps, but it's something that everyone or a lot of projects could use. So it's something that could push forward the EOSIO ecosystem. So it might fall within the realm of something that they'd be willing to give a grant for. Is that another thing that you might look into in the future?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm very excited to hear that EOS VC has started this grant process. And this reminds me of this, as we were talking earlier, the Moloch DAO on Ethereum. The concept there is, the goal for Moloch DAO is to advance Ethereum to the Ethereum 2.0. And the first step they did was to identify the things that they need to move from Ethereum 1.0 to 2.0. And then they break down the small steps, and then they request for all these developers to apply for these grants. And the idea there is, people would self-police. That means if you take this grant and you fail, you lose your reputation in the system. And these are small grants in the range of 10 to 20K. And I think EOS VC can do something along these lines, because they know that there are many things that we need for EOS ecosystem to grow. And they can identify these, and they can say that, and these are the specific things that we want. And all the developers can apply for this. And those who take the grant and fail, they have this risk of losing their reputation in the EOS ecosystem. And I think that's a very exciting thing to be happening here.
Possible tie-in with voice. You talk about reputation. Like, I don't know how that Ethereum DAO handles like creating a new account. I mean, anyone can create a new account, but you got to create a brand new reputation from scratch. So if you have an account that you've built up a reputation for years and you screw it over, like even without voice ID, like you still got to kind of start from scratch. But I think voice could definitely play a part into this grant program. They haven't said that outright, but I think it's going to be a huge opportunity. And some, like, if they did put out, I think calling them a bounty would be the best terminology for that. Is like, what do we want? What problem do we want solved? Here's the grant. Here's how you apply for it. I think doing anonymous transactions or passing encrypted data is definitely something that's needed. It's needed on any blockchain, and EOSIO in particular. So I hope that something like that happens, and I wish you guys the best of luck applying for it whenever it comes around. So we talked about Project Phoenix. Liquid airdrops. Michael, you've been the airdrops guy since basically day one of the mainnet. You had airdrops DAC with that big stack of RAM of yours, and then you're the VRAM and airdrops guy. You want to talk about what liquid airdrops is, how a project could use it, and educate everyone on how it's different from some other common would you say it's often
airdrop techniques? Yes.
Airdrop techniques.
Yes,
Yeah.
there is still, and I'm surprised that even the people who are in this ecosystem for a long time, they're still confused about these airdrops. So what is airdrop? And it's a way of distributing tokens. So you have a project, you have a token, you want to distribute this to people, and you use an airdrop as a mechanism, as an alternative to an ICO, for example. Now, how do you go about it? So right now, the last time I checked, there is about 1.6 million accounts on EOS mainnet. Now, out of this, maybe only a few of them are really real accounts. Many of them are dust accounts, or they are set up for testing, or they're bot accounts. So the first thing to do is to take a snapshot and then filter. You need some criteria to select the accounts for which you are sending the tokens. And it can be any type of criteria. You know, the common ones that we use are some type of minimum balance. So if an account has a minimum balance of maybe, let's say 2 EOS or 3 EOS, whether it's liquid, staked, or in REX, then you will drastically cut down the number of accounts. So from 1.6 million, you know, you're probably talking about maybe 250 to 300,000 or even maybe 400,000 account range, which is feasible, right? No, we have done airdrops up to 600,000 accounts, I think, the biggest one that we did. So once you determine the number of accounts, then you have to see how you're going to do this airdrop. To do the airdrop, you need RAM, especially in EOS. So there is a fixed amount of RAM that's needed per account. So if you're a project with a lot of financing, you just go and buy the RAM, you do the airdrop, and that's done. Now, many of the projects that we deal with, you know, they don't have this financing. So then there are two options. You know, Nathan Rempel, you know, came up with this famous, the poor man token, if you remember this, Zack, you know, way, this was like many months ago, right? Now, this is a way, this is not really an airdrop, it's an air grab. So here, you know, you're just signing up. So here you have the RAM in your account. So you go to this, you know, EOS toolkit or any of these, or blocks, for example, and you click this button for air grab. And what you're basically doing is you're taking a part of your own RAM and you're reserving this for this token to be airdropped sometime in the future, if at all. You know, there are many air grabs, you know, we both have signed up, right? Which have never materialized, right? Because these things may come, may not come, but they took your RAM and you have a row there that says, if this token comes, this RAM is for this. Now, that airdrop that we do is different. This is not airdrop.
Sorry to interrupt, but I want to explain the problem statement here. And so the air grab basically has the end user reserving a little spot, a little row of RAM for this future token that might never come to fruition. But the first way you explained, where you have to buy the RAM and then airdrop all of these users, the developer or the project themselves have to own all of the rows of RAM for all of the users they're going to airdrop to. And if those users never transfer that token, then your RAM's basically locked up for potentially forever.
Yes, you never get back. And you know, if you look at the well-funded projects, you know, like Everpedia, for example, you know, they bought the RAM, they did the airdrop. I didn't check their contract lately, but a large amount of that is still unclaimed. I mean, many of the accounts never transferred the Everpedia token out of their account. So that means the RAM is there, and the projects know this. So when they do this airdrop, you know, they have well-funded projects. You know, they're not bothered about, you know, whether they will get this RAM back or not. But for a project with a short budget, you know, then we have this other option where, you know, we own a large amount of RAM on the mainnet ourselves. So what we do is, you know, we lease this RAM out. The way we lease this RAM, so the same process. So you take the snapshot, you do a filter, you decide on the number of accounts that you want to airdrop. Then we use our own RAM to do this airdrop. That means the user is not yet paying for the RAM. So they get the tokens in their wallet just like any other token. And we have a certain time period that we agree to. You know, we did the DAPP huddle airdrop, if you remember, right? You know, that's we airdropped this to 440,000 accounts or something in that range. So all of you, you know, got this DAPP huddle token in your account, right? Now, that's in your account for only 2-year period. So we have an agreement with the Liquid App stream that, you know, we will keep these tokens in the user's account for this period of time. Now, when you claim this by whatever means, and whether by staking to a DSP or just pressing the claim button, then you're paying the RAM from your account to claim these tokens. Then those tokens are yours. So then those cannot be reclaimed. So if you don't do anything at all, then, you know, after the 2-year period ends, you know, we will reclaim all these unclaimed tokens plus the RAM that we leased to the Liquid App stream. So that's the traditional. It's the traditional airdrop with the option of getting back the RAM when we want it. You know, that means, you know, we usually have an agreement with the project beforehand that this is the amount of time that we are willing to wait. And once that period ends, we just, you know, we just take the RAM and the tokens back. We did that MPT airdrop, it was similar. We've done the EMT airdrop, that's similar. You know, so you got the tokens. If you didn't do anything, those tokens disappeared because we got them back. So now the next chapter in this is the liquid airdrop. No, even the airdrop that we do is less expensive than the traditional airdrop, but there's still some cost to it. So right now, I think it may cost you something in the range of maybe $20,000 to $30,000 to do the traditional airdrop. So the next chapter is the liquid airdrop. So here, we are not actually using the RAM that we have. That's why it's less expensive. So we can do a liquid airdrop for 1.6 million accounts if you want, for a very nominal fee of $500. Now, how can we do that? So here we are taking the snapshot. So it's optional whether you want to use the filter, whether you want, it's up to you. But if it's let's say it's not for token distribution, it's a marketing effort. Let's say you have a new project, this token has no value, but it's just for marketing your project. Then you can as well airdrop to 1.6 million accounts, right? And you have nothing to lose there. Mm-hmm. So you take the snapshot, and we keep the snapshot on a Amazon, AWS, or GCP, and we use the Liquid Oracle service to look into this snapshot. Now, when you take the snapshot, we allocate the tokens to all the accounts that's in the snapshot. So when you want to claim, you go to our portal and you put your account name, and then you will see that your account is eligible to some number of tokens. Right? When you claim this token, you are paying your RAM. So you have to pay your RAM, and the token contract will send the tokens to you. And the Liquid Oracle service is looking up in the snapshot to make sure that your account is there. So that's how we reduce the cost of this massive airdrop. So here the end user is paying for the RAM. We are not paying for the RAM, but we have the snapshot and we have the allocated number of tokens.
So to recap, if you're a developer and you want to do an airdrop, you could pay $20,000 or you could pay $500. And if you want to do that, obviously you can get a hold of Michael. He's always available in the Liquid Apps chat, the DAPP Network Devs chat, and you have a DSP portal. You want to plug that as well?
Oh yes, and we have our Malta Block DSP portal, where you can do all the things that you normally do. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, of course.
So let me share the screen, and I can show you how this liquid airdrop looks like. So if you go to dsp.maltablock.org, so here you should have, it's like any other regular DSP portal. So you have all the packages here. You have the DSPs, you have the services, and you have the stakes. But here on the top, if you go there, there's this liquid airdrop here. Now let's say, let's put some account there. Let's see here. Oh, let's see, everything is a noun. But anyway, so that's the idea. So if there is some balance here, you can just put the claim button, and here you are paying for the RAM yourself. Mm-hmm. And then you get the tokens pushed back to you. So the cost is very low, but the main disadvantage here, it's not showing up on blocks before you claim it. That means, once we say, even if we say, for example, we did the EMT liquid airdrop just maybe last month or the month before. So you would not know that we finished the airdrop because there is nothing in your account that tells you that you got the tokens. And we will send a message to you. So there is a message that you can read that there is some tokens for you, but it won't show up in your wallet.
But
that's the main.
That's
main
like the responsibility of the project, though. So like Emanate, they did this liquid airdrop. It's kind of on them to tweet it out and do the blog and say, guys, we have this airdrop. It's free. You just go here and claim it.
Yes.
So I don't see that as being a problem, but you're even taking one step further and you're sending like a message with a memo.
Yes. When we do the liquid airdrop, each account that's eligible for these tokens will get a memo saying that, they got this airdrop, and they can go there and claim the tokens.
Yeah, I still think it sits on the shoulders of the project because we get so many of those messages. it's hard to filter all of them. You have some other really cool stuff you're working on. We talked a little bit the other day about with the proxy staking tool. You want to kind of explain what that does?
Yes,
that's really cool.
So there is this feature in the EOS where you can transfer and stake a small amount of EOS, and that will refresh the votes. And some people, I think even EOS Nation is doing this to all their big accounts, but they're not doing it to all the accounts. And what we want to do is we want to use the Liquid Oracle service plus the Liquid Scheduler, so that we can every week we can refresh the votes of all the accounts in your proxy. So hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have this service ready. So we will be using the Liquid Scheduler service from the DAPP network. And we have a script that runs every week, and that will transfer and stake 0.0001 EOS to all the accounts in your proxy, so that when you look at your proxy next week, you will not see the 10% decay. It will be gone. And I think it's a very useful feature for all the proxies to have, because if people have given their votes, maybe they don't have the time to refresh the votes, but we should make the votes count, right? Even like the EOS Nation proxy, see, they have like a small amount of decay, but the small amount is still 25,000 votes, right? Mm-hmm. We can do the same thing for them. We can remove even this small amount of decay from this vote. So every vote will count.
Check out Brock. I bet EOS Nation runs their own scripts. Check Brock proxy.
Brock's proxy? Let's check. Brock. I don't think Brock is doing any vote refreshing. Let's check.
I know.
Is it the third one?
Yeah, right there. Because I bet EOS Nation, they're on top of things. I bet they're doing something. Yeah.
Wow, he has 1.69. See, his total USDK is 114,661 votes. Yes, Brock can really use some help from us. Yes, we will help you out, Brock. Don't worry.
All right. Yeah. So support Brock
can
Pierce.
Help out any proxy.
Okay. So how about you, Chris? Like, I know you're working on a lot of stuff with Michael, but you're also heavily involved in the Vigor DAC. You want to kind of talk about what you're doing with Vigor and some of that work, and what other things you're passionate about that you're excited to kind of share here?
Sure, yeah. So I'm working for Vigor right now as mainly a front-end developer. Basically looked what's the biggest need right now, and there were already a lot of people working on smart contract side. So I took the lead on the front-end side, and Rayleigh is also part of Malta and he designed a really awesome new Vigor stablecoin landing page. And we're finishing this up right now and releasing it soon. It will look really nice. So that's really cool. And then besides the landing page, we just pushed the second MVP onto the testnet. So we will also be releasing a front end for that soon. So a lot of development going on. If you want to help out, join us.
Yes, join Vigor. Michael, I forgot about Raleigh. I didn't really forget, but Raleigh is another one of your team members on Malta Block. So basically, you've got one of the top cryptographers and by far the absolute best designer in EOS on your team. So you definitely have a dream team there. And I'm sure there's others that I'm not as familiar with, but those two are good. Is there anything I left out today? Anything that you guys wanted to talk about that we didn't cover yet?
No, I think we had a good discussion. I'm excited to be part of the EOS and part of the DAPP network. We see a lot of potential here. It's only beginning. So as we roll many of these services out, more and more people will know the use cases for the DAPP network.
Is there any timeline on Project Phoenix?
Chris, any timeline?
We're doing the last tests now on the test net, and then once we flesh out everything, then we can release it. But I don't want to give a timeline right now, but very soon.
Developers hate giving timelines.
Exactly.
Yeah, so soon. Trademark.
Soon.
All right. So I guess that's it for this show. I appreciate the time. Once again, I'm here with Michael Gucci and Christoph Michel from Malta Block, Airdrops DAC, Vigor DAC, Project Phoenix, whatever we're going to call this voter proxy decay tool. Thank you guys so much. We actually sign off on the shows on Everything EOS in a very specific way. Are you guys familiar?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. You guys can kick it out.
Until next time, I'm Chris.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Zack. And
this is Everything
EOS.
And this is Everything
EOS.
Go EOS.
Go EOS.